I was standing by the sliding glass door, the morning sunlight warming my shoulders, when my phone buzzed again. Another text from my cousin. "Can't believe you did it like that, lol," it read. My fingers tightened around my coffee mug, the ceramic smooth against my skin, and I let out a small, ironic laugh. It had been 5 years since that backyard wedding, 5 years since my family had laughed at me like I was some sort of amateur, 5 years since I had felt that sting of humiliation. They'd whispered behind my back, rolled their eyes when I mentioned the plans, and acted like my choices were childish. And yet, here I was, standing in my apartment, overlooking the skyline of Chicago, feeling calm, poised, and quietly victorious. I smoothed the silk of my blouse and glanced at my reflection in the glass. My hair caught the sunlight just right, my makeup subtle but sharp. Nobody knew, of course, what had happened after that day. Nobody knew that I had quietly rebuilt my life into something real, something that no one could mock. The buzz came again, this time a call from my aunt. I hesitated before answering. My stomach fluttered, not with fear, exactly, but with the anticipation of finally confronting the echoes of the past. "Hello," I said, my voice steady, though my heart was hammering. "You won't believe what's happening," she said. And suddenly, everything was about to change. I remember that day as if it were yesterday, the warm spring sunlight, the scent of freshly cut grass, and the nervous tremor in my hands as I adjusted the simple lace ribbon on my backyard arch. Everything had been small, intimate, and, to me, perfect. But to my family, apparently, it was a disaster. My mother's face was a mask of disapproval as she surveyed the setup. "Hannah, a wedding in your backyard? Really?" she said, voice dripping with thinly veiled judgment. My father chuckled behind her, shaking his head, and I could feel the heat rise in my cheeks. Cousins snickered, friends tried to hide their amusement, and my grandmother, the one person I had hoped would quietly support me, gave a small, apologetic smile but said nothing. I wanted to disappear. My hands shook as I clutched the bouquet I had made myself, petals slightly bruised but still fragrant. My throat tightened as my dreams, which had seemed so tangible, were suddenly reduced to jokes. "It's quaint," my older brother muttered, his grin smug, and that was all it took. My heart sank further with every whispered laugh and rolled eye. But then I remembered what my grandmother had whispered to me earlier that morning, when she pressed a tiny charm into my palm, a silver leaf, simple, unassuming. "This is for courage," she said. "It's not about how they see it, Hannah. It's about how you feel, and only that matters." Her words anchored me. I straightened my spine, lifted my chin, and took a deep breath. If my family wanted to see embarrassment, they would see something else entirely. I didn't need their approval. That day, amid the laughter and the sharp edges of criticism, I made a choice. I would never let their opinions dictate my life again. I walked down the aisle, heart pounding, hands steady despite the storm of emotions inside me. And in that moment, every chuckle, every sideways glance, every whispered insult was transformed into fuel. They might have thought it was a joke, but I knew the truth. I was standing on the first step of my own life, unshaken, unapologetic, and determined to rise. After that day, I left the backyard with more than just a bruised ego. I carried determination, a quiet fire I hadn't known I possessed. I moved into a small downtown apartment, its paint peeling in corners, its kitchen cramped, but it was mine. I unpacked the silver leaf for my grandmother and placed it on my nightstand, a constant reminder that my worth was mine to define. I threw myself into work, taking a position at a boutique event planning firm. My mentor, Lila Thompson, a sharp, seasoned woman in her 40s, immediately recognized the drive I tried so hard to conceal. "Hannah, you've got an eye for moments," she said one afternoon, watching me arrange a table centerpiece with painstaking care. "Don't let anyone make you feel small. Ever." Her words sank in, and I began to believe them. The early months were grueling. I worked 12-hour days, often coming home exhausted, my fingers raw from rearranging flowers and my mind spinning with ideas for clients who didn't yet know my name. There were nights I stared at the ceiling, wondering if I'd made the wrong choice, if my family's laughter would echo in my head forever. But every small victory became a lifeline. My first big client came unexpectedly, a wedding for a young couple who wanted something unique, something intimate, just like I had always dreamed. I poured every ounce of creativity into it. When the event concluded flawlessly and the couple wept with joy, I realized that success felt sweeter when it was earned, not borrowed from approval. I continued to grow, quietly building a portfolio that would one day astonish even the harshest critics. I learned to balance budgets, negotiate with vendors, and design experiences that left guests breathless. Each win, first profitable event, first glowing testimonial, first recognition in a local magazine, was a quiet rebellion against the childhood whispers that my dreams were silly. But I never posted about it to my family. Social media updates were vague. A photo of a floral arrangement here, a blurred image of a venue there. I wanted them to think I was surviving, maybe even struggling. I wanted them to underestimate me. Behind closed doors, I thrived. I invested in my own business, eventually starting my own boutique wedding planning company, Ever After Events. I hired a small, trusted team and cultivated clients who valued intimacy and authenticity over grandeur. My life transformed. Modest apartments became stylish lofts, rented cars became my own sleek sedan, and my confidence became a shield against the echoes of past ridicule. And all the while, that silver leaf remained on my nightstand, a symbol of the courage to keep going, the courage to build something lasting without a single cheer from those who had laughed at me. It was mine, my quiet rebellion, my hidden success, and I cherished it. The invitation I had sent to my family was vague, just a casual brunch at my place, nothing more. I didn't even hint that it was connected to the wedding anniversary of that infamous backyard ceremony. I wanted them to arrive with assumptions, just as they always had. The morning of, I moved through my apartment like a conductor, adjusting vases of fresh tulips, straightening throw pillows, checking that every light reflected warmth and elegance. The air smelled faintly of vanilla and coffee, a combination that somehow felt grounding. I glanced at the silver leaf on my mantel. Today it would witness something monumental. They arrived, my mother's disapproving frown, my father's half-smile, my brother's smug look, each face a perfect mirror of my memories. Cousins whispered, glancing around the space, probably expecting modesty, simplicity, maybe even evidence of some quiet struggle. But what they saw instead made their mouths pause mid-gesture. The apartment had been transformed. Original art lined the walls, each piece carefully curated, reflecting subtle luxury without pretension. A dining table, polished to a soft gleam, was set for brunch with fine china and delicate floral arrangements. Small details, hand-selected crystal glasses, linen napkins, personalized place cards, spoke louder than words ever could. I greeted them calmly, letting them settle, letting the room do the talking. They wandered, stunned, taking in my taste, the effortless elegance, and the aura of confidence that I carried like armor. My mother's eyebrows shot up, my father's hand froze on the doorframe, my brother's smirk faltered. Finally, I spoke. My voice was soft but clear, carrying both pride and quiet authority. Surprised? I asked. They didn't answer immediately. They couldn't. So I continued. This isn't rented. These aren't borrowed pieces. Every detail, every choice, every success here, it's mine. Ever After Events, my company, my clients, my achievements. I built this from nothing, quietly, without needing approval from anyone who laughed at me 5 years ago. I watched their reactions unfold like a slow-motion film. My mother's lips parted in disbelief. My father's eyes widened, guilt flickering before pride, or perhaps awe, crept in. My brother's jaw tightened. He looked away, probably embarrassed that he had ever dismissed me. I've been successful, yes. More than you imagined. More than you believed possible, I said, feeling the last traces of that old humiliation lift. And the backyard wedding? It was perfect, just like I wanted it. Not for your approval, Not for anyone's approval. It was for me and for love. And that's exactly how I live my life now. Silence filled the room. I let it stretch, letting the weight of the words sink in, letting the reality of their assumptions collide with the truth of my life. Finally, my mother whispered, almost choked, We didn't realize. No, I said gently but firmly. You didn't. And now you know. For the first time, the power had shifted. The laughter that once stung had no place here. My life, my choices, my happiness, it was all visible, undeniable, and beautifully mine. I let them linger in the room a moment longer, letting the weight of the revelation settle. Their faces were a mix of awe, guilt, and something else. Hope, perhaps, that things could be different. But this time, I would not simply forgive and forget. I had the upper hand, and I intended to use it wisely. Before we move forward, I began, taking a slow sip of my coffee. I need to be clear about one thing. This, my life, my success, does not erase the past. But I believe in second chances, and I believe in growth. If you want a place in my life, there are conditions. Simple, but necessary. My mother swallowed and nodded, though her expression still held caution. My father shifted in his seat, looking as though he were bracing for a lecture. My brother, usually quick with sarcasm, looked uneasy, unsure whether he wanted to hear this or run. First, I said, locking eyes with each of them, I need honesty. No more laughing behind my back, no more dismissing my choices, no more gossip. I will not allow old patterns to repeat. Second, I continued, I expect effort. If you want to be part of my life, then show interest in growth, pursue your own dreams, support each other, and stop comparing yourselves to me or anyone else. Your success is yours, not mine. I paused, letting my words sink in, watching them absorb the gravity of the moment. Third, I said softly, I want respect. This includes small things, listening, acknowledging boundaries, being present without judgment. If you can do that, we can rebuild. But if you cannot, then this is where it ends. And I will not feel guilty. Their reactions were subtle but telling. My mother's eyes glistened with tears. She seemed to understand the depth of what I had endured. My father nodded slowly, a rare humility in his posture. My brother, initially tense, finally exhaled, a hint of reluctant acknowledgement in his expression. I know these conditions may feel strict, I said, voice steady, but they're not punishment. They are the blueprint for respect, healing, and authentic connection. I am compassionate, but I will not compromise my well-being or happiness for old habits and old wounds. I could see it in their eyes now, the realization that their laughter, their judgment, and their disbelief had consequences. And yet, it wasn't about revenge. It was about setting a standard, one that allowed love and growth without repeating the mistakes of the past. For the first time, I felt fully in control of the narrative of my life. No one could diminish me. No one could laugh at my dreams. And if they wanted to be part of my story moving forward, they would do so on my terms, terms that honored my journey, my choices, and the woman I had become. And somewhere in the back of my mind, I felt my grandmother's silver leaf charm gleam in quiet approval. Courage had brought me here. Courage would carry me further. Weeks passed after that brunch, and the atmosphere between us slowly began to shift. My family had not only absorbed the truth of my success, but they were starting to adapt, to really see me, not the version they had laughed at in that backyard all those years ago. My mother started calling more often, asking for advice on her own projects, genuinely curious rather than critical. My father offered quiet encouragement, a subtle pride in his voice I hadn't heard before. Even my brother, stubborn as ever, had begun to acknowledge my achievements without sarcasm, and in rare moments, we laughed together without the weight of judgment pressing down. I often caught myself glancing at the silver leaf on my mantle. It had started as a simple gift, a charm meant to remind me of courage. But now, it symbolized everything I had become: resilience, independence, and grace. That tiny piece of silver had been my anchor through doubt, my talisman in the darkest moments, and a reminder that my happiness had never needed validation from anyone else. Sitting on my balcony one evening, the skyline glowing in the twilight, I reflected on the journey. The embarrassment, the laughter, the dismissals, they had all led me here, to a life I had built on my own terms. I was not bitter. I was grateful. Grateful for the challenges that had forced me to grow, for the small victories that had built my confidence, and for the family that, slowly, was learning to see me clearly. And in that clarity, I realized something important. Life was never about proving them wrong. It was about proving to myself that I could rise above, that I could thrive, that I could create a life full of love, success, and authenticity. I smiled, the cool breeze brushing against my cheeks, and whispered to no one in particular, I am enough. I always have been. And now they finally see it too. The silver leaf glinted in the fading light, and I knew, with absolute certainty, that courage had led me here. And as I sipped my coffee, feeling the warmth spread through me, I finally felt the quiet satisfaction of a life claimed, a life lived fully, and a heart unburdened.